2,100 yards, this distance from hitting a human target was physically impossible, but Chris Kyle, hearing his commander's "can't be done" words, quietly began adjusting his scope. The next 4 minutes would witness a precision display unlike anything seen in military history. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rooftops of Sadr City as Staff Sergeant Chris Kyle settled behind his Macmillan TAC-338 rifle, his longest confirmed kill shot at an impressive distance of 2,100 yards, approximately 1.2 miles, was about to become legend, though no one on his SEAL team believed it possible. Through his scope, Kyle could see the insurgent clearly. An RPG launcher rested against the man's shoulder, aimed directly at a patrol of Marines advancing through the narrow street below. The distance reading on Kyle's laser rangefinder seemed like a cruel joke. 2,100 yards, over a mile, further than any confirmed kill in SEAL history. Negative on the shot, Kyle crackled through his radio. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison's voice carried the weight of tactical experience. That range is beyond weapon capability. No one hits that far in crosswinds. Kyle didn't respond immediately. His eyes studied the wind flags positioned at various distances between his position and the target. The breeze was gusting irregularly, ranging from 12 to 18 miles per hour from the northeast. At this distance, those wind variations would push his bullet several feet off course. The mathematical calculations required were staggering. But Chris Kyle wasn't just any sniper. Born in Odessa, Texas, he'd been shooting since age 8 when his father gave him his first rifle. What made Kyle different wasn't just his natural ability, it was his obsessive understanding of ballistics, meteorology, and physics that most snipers never bothered to learn. His childhood had been spent hunting deer and quail across the vast Texas plains, where his father taught him to read wind patterns by watching grass movement, to calculate bullet drop by understanding trajectory mathematics, and to achieve the perfect trigger squeeze that separated accurate shots from perfect shots. Those early lessons on the family ranch had planted seeds that would grow into supernatural marksmanship ability. Kyle's teenage years were dedicated to mastering precision shooting under every conceivable condition. He practiced in rain, snow, extreme heat, and bitter cold. He learned to shoot from uncomfortable positions, under time pressure, and while controlling his breathing and heart rate. By age 16. He was consistently outperforming adult hunters and competitive marksmen who couldn't understand how someone so young achieved such devastating accuracy. During high school, Kyle spent every weekend at shooting ranges throughout Texas, testing different ammunition types, studying ballistic performance under various atmospheric conditions, and developing techniques that went far beyond anything taught in conventional courses. His bedroom was filled with ballistic charts, environmental data tables, and precision shooting manuals that he studied with academic intensity. Sir, Kyle's voice was calm, almost conversational. I can make this shot. The silence on the radio frequency was telling. Morrison had worked with Kyle for 6 months, watching him eliminate targets at ranges that challenged conventional wisdom. But 2,100 yards wasn't just long range, it was mathematically improbable. Kyle, listen to me carefully, Morrison continued. The bullet drop at that distance exceeds 400 inches. Wind drift could throw you off by 15 feet. You're talking about a shot that requires perfection in variables you can't control. Kyle's finger traced the elevation turret on his scope. He'd already calculated the holdover needed, 37 minutes of angle up, accounting for the bullet's rainbow trajectory over nearly 2 miles. The .338 Lapua Magnum round would take 3.2 seconds to reach its target, during which the Earth's rotation would actually affect the bullet's path. Through his spotting scope, Petty Officer Marcus Webb watched Kyle's methodical preparation with growing amazement. Commander, he's actually doing the math for Coriolis effect that I've never seen anyone calculate that complex in real time under combat pressure. The Coriolis effect at extreme ranges, the Earth's rotation influenced bullet trajectory by several inches. Most military snipers had heard of it but never needed to apply it practically. Kyle was factoring in variables that didn't appear in standard training manuals, calculations that required understanding physics at a level that challenged most college graduates. But Morrison was beginning to understand that Chris Kyle wasn't operating within normal parameters. His personnel file mentioned exceptional marksmanship scores, but it didn't capture the obsessive dedication that had transformed natural talent into supernatural capability. During basic SEAL training, Kyle's instructors had noted his unusual approach to precision shooting, while other candidates focused on meeting minimum standards. Kyle studied ballistic tables with the intensity of a graduate student. He memorized environmental correction factors, practiced calculating complex trajectory mathematics in his head, and developed shooting techniques that exceeded anything taught in conventional courses. His first deployment to Iraq had been educational rather than legendary. Kyle learned urban warfare tactics, studied enemy behavior patterns, and began developing the patient, methodical approach that would define his career. But it was during his second deployment that his exceptional capabilities began attracting attention from SEAL commanders who recognized they were working with someone whose abilities transcended normal training. Kyle's reputation within the SEAL community was built on consistency rather than spectacular single achievements. He delivered precise shots under pressure, eliminated high-value targets at extreme ranges, and demonstrated the kind of reliability that made him invaluable for missions where failure wasn't acceptable. His teammates learned to trust his assessment of shooting situations because his calculations were invariably accurate. What set Kyle apart wasn't just technical skill, it was his understanding of the psychological aspects of precision shooting. He'd learned to control anxiety, manage adrenaline, and maintain focus under the extreme stress of combat situations. These mental techniques, combined with his mathematical approach to ballistics, created capabilities that exceeded anything most military personnel had encountered. "What's your confidence level?" Morrison asked, knowing he was about to authorize a shot that defied every tactical principle he'd been taught. Kyle studied the target through his scope one final time. The insurgent was stationary, apparently unaware of the Marines approaching from 3 blocks away. In approximately 30 seconds, he would fire his RPG, likely killing or wounding multiple Americans. The mathematics of the situation were as clear as the ballistic calculations. Someone was going to die in the next minute. The mathematical complexity of the shot was overwhelming. Kyle needed to account for bullet drop of 427 inches, wind drift of 19 inches to the left, atmospheric pressure variations that would affect air density, temperature differentials between his position and the target area, and the Coriolis effect that would deflect his bullet by 4.2 inches at this extreme range. But Kyle had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this moment. His personal notebooks contained ballistic data for every ammunition type he might encounter, atmospheric correction factors for various climates and altitudes, and environmental variables that most snipers never considered. He'd calculated trajectory paths through dozens of different conditions, measured how temperature gradients affected accuracy, and learned to read microclimatic patterns that influenced precision at extreme distances. Kyle's preparation extended beyond technical knowledge. He'd studied enemy behavior patterns, learned to predict movement based on tactical situations, and developed the patience to wait for optimal shooting conditions even under extreme pressure. His success rate wasn't accidental, it was the result of methodical preparation meeting exceptional natural ability. The insurgent he was targeting had been identified through weeks of surveillance. Intelligence reports indicated this individual was responsible for coordinating RPG attacks against coalition patrols throughout Sadr City. His elimination would significantly reduce threats to American forces operating in this sector, but only if Kyle could achieve something that military doctrine considered impossible. "Sir, based on current atmospheric conditions, target behavior, and ballistic computations, 85% probability of first-round hit." Morrison felt his throat go. In sniper doctrine, anything above 70% was considered actionable, but this wasn't normal doctrine. This was a shot that would either save American lives or reveal their position to every hostile within miles. "You understand what happens if you miss? They'll know exactly where we are. Every insurgent in Sadr City will converge on this building. My team gets compromised, and we lose our overwatch capability for the entire sector." "Copy that, sir." "And you understand what happens if I don't take the shot?" Through his binoculars, Morrison could see the Marines moving closer to the kill zone. Their patrol pattern would bring them directly into the RPG's effective range within minutes. Kyle was right, the mathematics were grim either way. Sometimes tactical decisions came down to choosing between bad options and catastrophic ones, but Morrison was beginning to understand something about Chris Kyle that wasn't in his personnel file. This wasn't just confidence, it was the quiet certainty of someone who had done the impossible so many times that extraordinary had become routine. Kyle's previous long-range eliminations weren't lucky shots, they were the result of methodical preparation meeting exceptional capability under the most demanding circumstances. 3 weeks earlier, Kyle had eliminated a target at 1,850 yards under similar conditions. The month before that, 1,920 yards. Each success had pushed him closer to understanding the absolute limits of precision shooting. His reputation among SEALs wasn't built on spectacular stories, it was earned through consistent performance at ranges other snipers wouldn't attempt. Kyle's pre-shot routine was a masterclass in precision shooting preparation that he checked atmospheric conditions using portable meteorological equipment, measured wind speed and direction at multiple points between his position and the target, calculated air density variations based on temperature and humidity, and factored in elevation differences that would affect bullet trajectory over the extended flight path. His understanding of ballistics went far beyond standard military training. Kyle had studied advanced physics, learned from civilian precision shooting experts, and developed calculation methods that incorporated variables most snipers didn't know existed. The result was shooting capability that challenged everything military doctrine considered possible. Kyle's mental preparation was equally important. He'd learned to compartmentalize stress, focus completely on technical requirements, and execute complex procedures under extreme pressure. His success wasn't just about marksmanship, it was about maintaining professional competence when lives depended on perfect performance. The rifle he was using represented the pinnacle of precision shooting technology. The Macmillan TAC-338 was chambered for .338 Lapua Magnum ammunition, specifically designed for extreme long-range engagements. Combined with premium optics and match-grade ammunition, it provided the accuracy potential necessary for shots at distances exceeding normal tactical ranges. But equipment was only part of the equation. Kyle's modifications to his rifle system, his selection of specific ammunition loads, and his calibration of optical equipment reflected years of experimentation and refinement. Every component had been tested, adjusted, and optimized for the extreme conditions he regularly encountered. Kyle's breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm that separated amateur marksmen from lethal professionals. His heart rate dropped to barely 60 beats per minute, eliminating even microscopic movements that could affect his aim. This was the physiological state that only the most elite shooters ever achieved, where mind and body synchronized into perfect stillness. The rifle felt like an extension of his body. Kyle had fired thousands of rounds through this particular TAC-338, understanding its unique characteristics, its preferred ammunition loads, and the precise way it responded to various environmental conditions. The weapon wasn't just equipment, it was a precision instrument calibrated to his specific shooting style and adjusted for the extreme conditions he regularly encountered. Taking the shot, Kyle announced quietly. Morrison held his breath as he watched through his spotting scope. At 2,100 yards. Even seeing the target required excellent optics and perfect atmospheric conditions. Confirming a hit would take several seconds after the shot, during which time their entire tactical situation could change dramatically. Enemy forces throughout the sector would respond to the sound of gunfire, and Kyle's position would be compromised regardless of whether his shot succeeded. Kyle's finger found the trigger with gentle, consistent pressure. The TAC-338 had a clean, crisp break that he'd tested thousands of times during practice sessions that bordered on obsessive. He exhaled exactly half his breath and held it, reaching the moment of perfect physiological stillness that made impossible shots achievable. The final calculations ran through his mind like a computer program executing complex algorithms. 37 MOA elevation compensation for extreme bullet drop, 3 MOA left windage adjustment for crosswind drift, 4.2 inches Coriolis compensation for Earth's rotational effect, 3.2 seconds flight time during which conditions could change. Variables that would have overwhelmed most shooters had become second nature through years of methodical practice. His mental checklist was complete. Range confirmed at 2,100 yards, wind speed steady at 15 miles per hour from northeast, temperature 95 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity 31%, barometric pressure 29.91 inches of mercury, target stationary for optimal engagement window, Marines clear of potential collateral damage zone, escape route confirmed for post-engagement withdrawal. The rifle fired with tremendous force, the .338 Lapua Magnum creating a muzzle blast that shattered windows 3 floors below and announced their position to every hostile within miles. The massive bullet left the muzzle at 2,960 feet per second, beginning a 3.2-second journey that would cover 2,100 yards while dropping over 35 feet and drifting 19 inches due to calculated wind conditions and atmospheric variables. Shot fired, Kyle reported, immediately beginning to track his bullet's impact through the scope while maintaining perfect shooting position in case a follow-up shot became necessary. Through the spotting scope, Webb and Morrison watched in stunned silence as the bullet's vapor trail stretched across the urban landscape like a visible line connecting Kyle's position to the distant target. At this distance, they couldn't see the target clearly enough to confirm impact, but Kyle's professional assessment would be immediately apparent in his voice and demeanor. The seconds stretched into eternity. Morrison found himself counting heartbeats and breathing cycles. 1001, 1002, 1003. Time seemed suspended as the bullet traveled its impossible trajectory through air that would deflect, slow, and influence its path in ways that required mathematical precision. To predict, Kyle remained motionless behind his scope, tracking the bullet's path and preparing to spot his own impact. His breathing remained controlled, his position unchanged, ready to deliver a follow-up shot if the first round failed to eliminate the threat. At exactly 3.2 seconds, Kyle's voice crackled through the radio with the professional detachment that characterized all his communications. Target down. Confirmed kill. RPG threat eliminated. Morrison couldn't believe what he was hearing. That in 16 years of special operations, including combat deployments with the world's most elite units, he'd never witnessed shooting that defied basic physics and probability theory. Confirm your last transmission, Kyle. Target eliminated, direct hit, center mass. RPG threat neutralized. Marines are clear to advance through Sector 7 without hostile engagement. Webb, still watching through his spotting scope, finally spotted the downed insurgent through the haze of distance and urban atmosphere that made observation at this range extremely challenging. Holy shit, Commander. He actually made the shot. Clean hit, center mass, target is down and weapon is neutralized. The achievement was beyond extraordinary. Chris Kyle had just executed the longest confirmed sniper kill in U.S. military history, eliminating a lethal threat at a distance that challenged everything Morrison understood about the limitations of small arms effectiveness and human marksmanship capability. But Kyle was already breaking down his shooting position with the efficient movements of someone who understood that tactical success required more than accurate shooting. His muzzle blast had revealed their location to hostile forces throughout the area, and enemy response would come within minutes. Their tactical advantage depended on immediate relocation to secondary positions that had been planned before the engagement began. Outstanding shooting, Kyle, Morrison said quietly, his voice carrying newfound respect for capabilities that exceeded anything in his experience. How did you calculate for all those variables so quickly under combat pressure? Kyle secured his rifle and began gathering his equipment with the same methodical precision he'd shown while preparing for the shot that had just changed the tactical situation for American forces throughout the sector. Sir, it's just math applied under pressure. Physics doesn't change because the distance is intimidating or the stakes are life and death. You calculate every factor you can measure, estimate the ones you can't control, and execute with precision. What Kyle didn't mention was the years of preparation that had made this moment possible, the hours studying ballistic tables until mathematical relationships became intuitive, the notebooks filled with handwritten calculations for various atmospheric conditions and ammunition types, and the obsessive practice sessions that had prepared him for executing precision shooting under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. His success represented the convergence of exceptional human skill with advanced technology and mathematical precision. The Macmillan TAC-338 rifle, premium optics, match-grade ammunition, and laser range-finding equipment provided the tools, but Kyle's understanding of ballistics, environmental factors, and precision shooting under stress had transformed those tools into lethal capability that transcended normal military doctrine. The distance was 2,100 yards, the math said it couldn't be done. Chris Kyle proved that when precision meets preparation, mathematics becomes magic, and the impossible becomes inevitable when lives depend on it.
See you in the next videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe.